Hello, friends. Today we are going to talk about the subdivision I'm building for residential homes, as well as what are the key factors one should be looking at when you are really buying a house. So, the number one thing is really location, location, location. A lot of time people build houses, they buy a lot or old home, they demolish, they just rebuild it. But that does not give you the environment, the ambient, and especially when you're looking at the location, you gotta also see the accessibility to different routes, to the train station, to public transportation, the major highways, and then more importantly, what kind of environment you are providing to your kids, your family. Because if it is really one-off house on a street, if somebody just bought a lot and rebuilt it, it does not provide the environment you need. So in this video, in the background, you can see that we actually build the entire neighborhood, and that's what we do. Of course, it costs money to develop a neighborhood. I mean, just to develop a road and cul-de-sac, you gotta really put all kind of infrastructure. You gotta bring the infrastructure like all kind of drainage, all kind of electricity, gas, all other kind of water, all kind of utilities you gotta really build. And it is very costly, and especially finding the right land and the right location in the right tax zone and the right school system is not easy. So like this subdivision I'm building in Shrewsbury, Mass is very, very close to Westboro line. It's very accessible to Route 9, Route 20 and Mass Pike, very close to 2 train stations. And then the school system is really 9 to 10 out of 10. So really, that's the overall neighborhood which I want to give you an appeal. And then going in, and again, I'm not just giving you that because I'm building it. I think whenever you go out to buy a house, you should be looking at these things. And then the most important factor in the location is also taxes, because tax is something you have to pay every year. So like the region I'm building is really $13 per thousand, whereas if you just go to the neighboring Westboro or Southboro or Northboro, similar school system, but you're actually paying 20 plus, maybe $24, $23 per thousand. So if your tax for your house is $10,000, over there you got to be paying $20,000. It's double, so every year. So you got to really factor that in. Never ever just look at the fixed or one-time cost, upfront cost. Look at the total cost of ownership, and that's the reason I actually made another video about buying an older home and newer home, and I will be kind of talking a little bit about it right now as well. So before I really give you the 10 factors you should be looking at, I really want you to subscribe, share, like, discuss, because this is a lot of information we are giving you. In the long run, I'm building a real estate education course, which you have to pay to get. This is all free, so at the very least, we can share, discuss, and propagate the knowledge, because I really care about learning, mutually learning from each other. Now, when you go in, you gotta really look at the front of the house, the exterior, what kind of exterior it has. The most important thing in exterior is really windows. What kind of window rating you have, what type of windows these are, because that's really longevity of your house. Is it 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years rating, what kind of energy efficiency rating it has, and then of course the siding, because you will see I'm probably the only builder in the area which is using this 3-dimensional siding. Most builders use 2-dimensional smaller siding, and then I'm using batten board as well. So there's a lot to say, and then of course some stone work and other work on the facade, in the walkways. And then you go in and you look at really the interior. In the interior, what you have to really look at the floors, the kitchen, the volume, not the square footage, but the volume. Because a lot of time people only talk about square footage. You gotta really look at the volume, which means what's the height of the ceiling? Do you have a double-story foyer? Do you have a double-story family room? What's the height of the master bedroom? What's the height of your living room? What's the size of the dining room? Do you have a first floor in-laws? Do you have a full bathroom, half bathroom? What type of finishes in the bathroom? And then other important factor really is what type of kitchen finishes you have. Is it really all the way to the ceiling? Is it really 8 feet, 7 feet, 9 feet? What kind of double stack, glass, lights in cabinet, lights under cabinet, lights above cabinet? What kind of windows you're providing, to what direction? And then of course, what kind of ambient you're providing, that when you're sitting with your family in the dining area or in the sunroom or in the eating area, how do you feel? And then open concept, that where you can entertain not just 10 people, but maybe hundreds of people, depending on the size. And again, even a 3,000 square feet home could be built with a much smaller foundation versus a bigger foundation. So we going to talk about a basement when we go into the basement as well, because that's another factor you should be considering. But right now we're talking about the first floor, and you're talking about the kitchen, the full bathroom, the eating area, the dining room, the most important family room, the foyer, because when you're building a double-story foyer, it just gives a very open feeling when you get into the house, and because that's where builders save their money by putting a single-story foyer and they're putting the room above. If somebody's building a double-story foyer, that means they have a much bigger footprint that costs them more. If somebody's building higher ceilings, I usually say having a 20-foot ceiling height is actually more expensive than building two 10-feet floors. Keep that in mind. All right, you looked at those things because I'm going really fast. I don't want to really take too much of your time. And then you go to the second floor and you really look at the flow, the size of the hallways. And then when you look up and look down in the foyer and look down in the family room, what do you see? How do you feel? What kind of opening you have? What kind of windows you have? And then you go into the bedroom. What are the bedroom sizes? Do they have walk-in closets? Do they have attached bathrooms? And especially your master suite, that what kind of ambient and what kind of roof, what kind of ceiling height, what kind of amenities you have in your master bath or your attached bath, and Jack and Jills and what have you. So these are all the factors you have to see. Like I said, for the sake of time, I can't go in every single one, but then you see these finishes and you look at all those things. And then the other most important thing is you come down to the basement, and in the basement you gotta really see that how this heating system and duct system is built. Is it dual fuel? Is it single fuel? What kind of efficiency does it have? Nowadays people are using tankless water heater, but what kind of efficiency in the heating system? We use 95+% in the attic as well as in the basement. So most people build with one system with multiple zone. That's not really very efficient or really longevity. So we build like with 2 or 3 separate systems. So in this way, you really are not having cold and hot pockets. And then the other important thing really is the overall flow of the basement and the height of the basement. And when you do your duct, your plumbing, your electrician work, you should be doing in such a way that even if somebody is going to finish the basement, it does not chew up their ceiling height. That's very, very important that you think ahead, even if you're not finishing the basement. And then I always find ways to design in such a way that you have a walkout basement. Every single house I have built has a walkout basement one way or the other, and that really is that how do you design and engineer your lots. Since I'm an engineer, so I kind of think about it ahead of time. So, and then what kind of amenities you have in the basement, even though you may not be finishing, but at least you do some roughing, plumbing, you do proper heating in such a way that if you have to put a heat, it's easier to do later on. And then the most important thing in there really is the volume in the basement, volume in the first floor, volume in the second floor, and also volume in the attic, because a lot of time people put dormers and use the attic as a second floor bedrooms. It's very important. Whereas when we are building the attic, we have a one full floor of attic, which if you want to finish later, you can finish. But the benefit of that is it really gives you more room for your mechanicals in the attic, more room in the future to grow, better insulation, and a better overall house. And that's the reason you got to look at the roof. And then again, when you're looking at the roof, you got to look at, is it a hybrid roof or is it just a gable roof? Gable roof, just putting just a gable is a lot cheaper. Whereas when you're putting hybrid roof or hip roof, then that is a lot more expensive. And then what kind of shingles are used? What kind of roofing is it done? Is it 20 years? Is it 30 years? Is it architecture shingles? All those things you got to pay attention. These are details, not just for the materials but the design as well. And then another very important factor is energy efficiency. Houses built 20 years ago could have a HERS rating of 100. By the way, HERS rating is really home energy rating system. So there is a home energy rating system. It's called HERS rating. That rating could be from 42 to 150. And 42 is the most efficient right now. And believe it or not, we are building at the 42 level right now, even though most towns are still looking at 55 or 52. Now, 20 years ago, it used to be you could do 100 hertz rating and you could be very efficient home. Now you have to do 42. So the lower is the rating, more efficient the home is. Can you imagine going from 100 to 42, how difficult that would be? What it means is that you have to put thicker walls, you have to put thicker insulation, you have to maybe use foam instead of bats. You basically have to put different kind of windows, different different kind of walls, different kind of roofing, and then different kind of heating system. Because you used to just use a heating system which could be 70-80% efficient. Now you have to put 95% efficient, and even that is not enough. They also want you to use ERV and heat pump. What is ERV and heat pump? ERV is really for the recovery system. It's actually energy recovery system. Basically, it recover your air, but before throwing the inside air out, it takes the energy out, it takes the heat out and the moisture out, and then in this way you are more efficient. So every house now in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts required to be in ERV enabled, ERV already installed. And then the other thing in the energy efficiency really is that the air leakage. You could have a 10% leakage 20 years ago, but now you cannot even have that. The house should be so tight and closed they cannot even have more than 1.5% leakage. It was 3% just a couple of years ago, and now it's going into 1.5. So anyway, every year the code is changing and is getting more and more efficient. So just to give you a total cost of ownership idea, that if you were spending in 20-year-old home maybe $700 a month on your utility bill, now you're spending only $200 a month. So that's a huge saving of like $500 a month. That means $6,000. And then to look at the total cost of ownership, so you save in your taxes, you save in your energy, you get a much better ambient, you get a much better volume. So don't just look at square footage, look at the volume, look at the quality of the kitchens and the bathrooms and the tile work and the flooring, and all that is great. But the biggest thing is, which you cannot change, is what kind of volume you are getting and what kind of materials you are getting and what's your ambient. So I would hope you will benefit from it, and look at our home designs which we are showing you while we are speaking on this video. These homes are already pre-sold, but we are building more, and we do custom homes. So if you have a design and you want to build with us, or you want to take one of our homes we are building, you're more than welcome to contact us at richvmax@gmail.com. Until then, stay healthy and happy.